So welcome to our webinar about the newest release of Testwell CTC++, version 10.1. During the next half an hour or 45 minutes, I'm going to present you in a talk several general topics about our new release, and then we will focus on 3 major features of the release and explain what changed and how you can use that in Testwell CTC++, some organizational aspects at the beginning. If you have any questions, you can collect them and ask them in the Q&A section of Teams. It's not the chat, it's called Q&A or F&A if you have used Teams in German. And we are going to answer the questions at the end of the webinar. If you have very short questions, my colleague Roland Persson, who is with me here, will answer them directly in the F&A or Q&A section. And all questions relevant for other participants will be answered at the end after my talk, after my presentation. My name is Sabine, I'm product manager. I'm responsible for the development of Testwell CTC++, and I'm going to present you the features and the changes we made with the release today. This webinar is recorded, and if you or some of your colleagues are interested in listening to it again, you can ask us and we will share the recorded webinar on request with you or with your colleagues. So I'm going to start with the general topics. This is a collection of smaller topics, some generic ones, some bug fixes and so on, and later on we will focus on the feature of the release. The first general topic is a remark about our general plans, what we are doing, what we have already done with version 10.0, 1.5 years ago. We changed almost everything with regard to reporting. Reporting was and is the main focus at the moment for development. And our reporting tool, CTC Report, is and will be the one and only reporting tool for Testwell CTC++. This means that, for example, we removed CTC diff from the package. So with release 10.1, CTC diff is no longer available in the package. If you used it in the past, talk with us about that. We didn't get much feedback for CTC diff, and it based on the text reports generated with CTC post. CTC post is still part of Testwell CTC++, but the meaning of CTC post gets less and less. So in the future, we are planning to reduce CTC post to a technical tool to combine symbol files or to combine data files. In the moment, you can still make text reports or XML reports with it, but we do not recommend to do so. So our goal is that everything about reporting is done by CTC Report, and we do not further develop CTC Post or CTC XML merge. So if you have any workflow depending on these tools, just get in contact with us, talk with us, and we will find out how to replace these workflows with, we hope, something better. Then a total different topic, some design aspect. We changed the design of our bars, of our ring charts and bar charts with this new release. And we did that because the visualization of coverage was not really logical in the past. We showed coverage with red bars, and if you had more coverage, if you increased your coverage, you saw more red. And this is a little bit contradiction. So we changed it, and now coverage is always shown in blue in all charts. So on the left-hand side, you see an example without an explicit threshold. So the threshold is 100%. And with version 10.1, you see coverage in blue and missing coverage in salmon red. And if you're using a threshold, that's the example on the right-hand side. If you're using a threshold, then you see missing coverage up to the threshold in red, and above the threshold, it's light gray. And again, the coverage you achieved, you measured, is always blue now. Now, a change in topic, a total change in topic again. It's about bug fixes. We also released a lot of bug fixes with this version. And I would like to focus on one aspect always occupying us. It's C++ and its nature as evolving language. There are some indications what the bug fixes are about, and if you're very familiar with C++, you might guess what the issue is or what the problems were. First one is the so-called spaceship operator, and simply CTC++ did not know it and changed it in a way that it led to uncompilable source code, and we fixed that in this release. The next one is much more difficult. It looks very innocent on the first glance. It's a logical AND operator, and as we are measuring multi-condition coverage, we have to know it and to recognize it and to parse it. But unfortunately, since many years in C++ and also since many years in CTC++, this operator is also used as a R-value reference. And we fixed a bug that CTC++ mixed it with the logical AND the other way around. So a multi-condition was not instrumented, and now this is fixed. And the last one also might be of interest. It's more used in productive code, not only in header code, that you use. Many people use init statements in an if decision. The decision in this case is x greater than 5. And usually it is preceded with an initialization, usually with x in this example, but C++ standards allow almost anything in advance of x greater than 5. And if there was no initialization in this spot, then CTC++ could not handle that. And we also changed that. The idea of this small overview is to give you an impression that for C++, we always fixing stuff or keeping track with the evolving standard that first come to header code and then to productive code of our users. And then some more generic topic. We started with TÜV to certify CTC++ with version 10. So we have a TÜV certificate, and this certificate was extended to version 10 in March together with TÜV. So the development process and the tool is certified. And if you need to qualify CTC++ for your use, it's much more simple or almost no work at all, because you can rely on this TÜV certificate. Now I switch to the first feature. And this feature is about the origin, about more information regarding header files. And I would like to explain what it means and why header files are in header is in parentheses. But let's start with headers. If you do not know version 10, if you're still working with version 9, some review. We changed the behavior of CTC report with header files. So when it comes to code variants occur if you pre-process code differently with different defines or different macros, different compiler flags, or if defs, something like that. And in version 10, we started to show every variant in the report. So here we see an example with 3 header variants, and all these variants are separated in the report and indicated with a 1, a 2, and a 3 mark at the end. In this example, you see a difference between the 3 variants on the first glance, because the variants have different numbers of functions in it. And between variant 2 and variant 3, we see that function bar is with variant 3, function bar is longer, obviously. We have 10 counters for MCDC and in the denominator. Now, if we look to the source code view of header variant 2, for example, we still see the same picture as in the last version. We get an indication why the variants occur. Why do we have different variants? Because code is inactive in this variant. In line 9, the macro bar long or the define bar long was obviously not set for this variant. We have inactive code here. And now what is new? New is in the show more section, some information about the origin of this variant. And I would like to explain what you see here. It's about header.h, variant number 2. And now in this section, in this instrumentation origin section, you see two things. First, on the first level, you see in which symbol file this variant has been seen with C2 symbol files, mon.sim and monother.sim. And below the symbol file, as it is an included file we are looking at now, we see different files in which it was included. Every inclusion of a header file leads to one copy of the source code, leads to different coverage counters, and CTC report gets all these copies together and tries to figure out how many variants have been there. In this case, there have been 3 copies led to the same variant number 2. And this information is new, that you see, okay, this header variant was included in main 2, in main 6, and in main 7. Additionally, you see the timestamp of the instrumentation, and you also see the instrumentation mode. This is perhaps a rare situation that this header file has been instrumented with 2 different instrumentation modes. Typically, this will also lead to different variants, but in this example, we do not have any real multi-condition, so the variants are the same. This is potentially the smallest one of the 3 features I would like to present you today. Now I come to the largest one, to the key feature of version 10.1, to justifications. The idea, what is the idea of justifications? Its purpose. It's about theory versus reality. In theory, in all the standards, you're required to measure code coverage, full stop. And that typically means you need to measure 100% code coverage. Then you know that you are ready. In real life, that's not possible due to many reasons. You have code for error handling. You have functions that are not returning. You have endless loops in embedded software, especially. Many reasons lead to the impossibility to measure 100% code coverage. And we had in the past several features or approaches coping with that, but more or less it was all about comments. So you could comment, annotate code to show that why you have not been able to test it. And we want to offer more. So the goals for the justification features are, first, justify missing coverage. That's obvious. But the most important aspect is know when you are done. And so we want to offer the possibility that you see, okay, I have 75% covered and I justified everything else. And this everything else means that we have to be able to show the impact on coverage measures. And the third goal is to reuse justifications, but because typically they don't change as much as the code changes over time. If you have an endless loop, for example, the endless loop will stay the same even if you extend it in your code. So we would like to be able to reuse the justifications. And now we switch to the end of what you see if you're using this feature. If you're using justifications, the screenshot shows a report. You get there. We see the ring chart again. and now with an additional color, with a lighter blue, indicating something has been justified here and not tested. Dark blue is for the tested parts, and the lighter blue is for the justified parts. Then in these kind of reports, you get an additional column, the justifications written down. You see the number of justifications, and you also see the grouped justifications by some tags. And these kind of short descriptions or tags are assigned by you. So they are not our categorization, but your categorization. And as in the ring charts, you also see here in the bar charts the impact of justifications you entered. So you see that almost all MCDC is covered now by justifications. I would like to switch to the real report now. It's on the overview page, the same as you already saw. That's the same report, but I would like to go to the source code view for this report. One remark at that point, in the charts, you also get a tooltip. I think you won't see it in the Teams chat perhaps, but it's there, and it indicates the coverage without justifications. But now let's go to the source code view. So in the source code view, I start and hide some aspects about multi-condition coverage because it's easier to read than what we see. We start with a typical source code view, but for justification, we see something new. We see some blue parts here and here on the counter side. And in my example, we are using the example what we also provide with the CTC++ package. It's the dice example. So this function shows the face of a dice, prints it to the screen. And we have in a switch case statement a default here. And if programmed properly, this default will be never reached because this function is only called with numbers 1 to 6. So I have now the opportunity to justify this kind of default. And in this case, the justification is given by a source code comment. We have a key CTC++ justify. Then we have this tag or short description. You can decide what you would like to use. It's for grouping purpose in the overview page. And then you can hand over a longer description about this justification. I can, in source and details, I can show justifications. In this case, I already saw it because it's in the code. But now I see that this justification was assigned to this counter. And below, we see other justifications. In this case, we do not have any source code comment because this justification comes from a companion file. And also that one. We see another line that is justified here, the line containing the break statement and also the counter for the break statement. This is a counter that was justified by derivation. So I just unhighlight the justifications again, then it's easier to read. CTC report concluded that as the default case is justified, it's logical that this statement and also the break statement with its counter is justified. So you do not need to have to justify everything inside a branch or case or default to get coverage here. I go back to the PowerPoint presentation and just collect what we saw already. There are two possibilities, and we learned from several talks to customer and to users that both of them are very important because everyone has a slight different view on how would people like to collect justifications. In source code comment is possibility 1. We have the key CTC++ justify, a short description and a long description. The huge advantage when you do it in source code as a comment is that it change the position in the right way when you change the code. So if you want to justify the default and you add some code before the default changes its line. Usually the justification will just move with the default case and stay on the same position. On the other hand, you have to change the source code, and that's not always appropriate to do so, or you are not allowed to do so, or whatever, or you do not want to do so. So you can also store justifications in a companion file. It's a simple text file with a simple format. You have to say to what file you refer, and then you have to give the line number, a kind of typization type we need, and then the justification again. This has the advantage that you do not need to change your source code. It's also possible with that approach that you separate justifications. You have, for example, justifications for integration tests that do not apply to unit tests, because perhaps you are able to cover more with unit tests than you did with integration tests. And this distinction is only possible when you have the justifications in a companion file. The type I talked about. First, we refer justifications always to coverage counters. We can think about different features. It could refer to parts of the code or to lines or to whatever, but we want to assign them to counters, and you have to give some type. For example, for a decision, you have to tell if it's about the true or the false counter. So if you would like to justify the else branch of a decision, you would have to justify the false counter of the decision. We also have justifications for full functions called function by type, and for a more corner case. But if you have many counters on one line, many probes on one line, then you can use the type full line to justify all counters assigned to one line. That's perhaps the case if you heavily use macro code, then everything is assigned to the same preprocessed source code line, and then you can use this type of justification. I have an extended example to explain what we are doing with a justification again. In this case, I justified case 3 of our dice example. The justification belongs to the one hit counter of this case, and CTC report derives a lot from this kind of justification. For statement coverage, to see if you are ready, it derives for all these statements, for all these printf statements, it derives that they are justified, and it does the same for the lines, for the line indication that this is blue. And it also derives for the counter break, as we saw before in the report, it also derives here that this counter is justified. Visually, you see that this part was justified but not executed. So the original red color of the lines is still there at the beginning and still here at the beginning of the counter, but it's dominated by the justification blue. So that's it about the feature of justifications. Now we come to the third and the last feature I would like to present. It's about new report formats. A review again, a look back to version 10.0. With 10.0, the new HTML report has been the largest feature, or the core feature of this major release. And this report is based on a structured template. And with template, we mean a separation of the content, the coverage data derived by CTC report, and the presentation of the content. The presentation is delivered by several HTML files. There are always 3 of them, and additionally as many resources as you like. Resources can be CSS, can be JavaScript, can also be pictures or logos or icons or whatever. And there is a logic and a structure behind it. For example, from overview page, We have links to detail pages and we have links to source code pages. The overview template always lead to one index HTML file. The other two lead to many detail or many source code pages. So there's a lot of logic behind. The template itself is a language or an interface between CTC report and these files. We have, in this case, typical HTML elements, like a div here of a certain class. And additionally, here we have variables. Everything in $signs are variables, and these variables are filled with content by CTC report. That's the generic idea of this templating. And now with version 10.1, we make something more simple. So we started with a complex feature, and now we make the simpler feature. We are offering single file text templates that no resources, no detail overview logic. Only one file is a template, more or less the same template language. I have an example here. It's from the package we deliver with version 10.1. It's a Markdown example. This is a caption in Markdown indicated with a hash. And then here again, we have a variable in $signs, the project name you can hand over to a CTC report call. Here you see just a sentence, it's just plain text, and then again a variable is used, creation time. And here we have the CTC report options after CTC report. So, and then comes the content about measures. They are delivered in loops because we have several measures handed over in command line in a CTC report call. With these kind of text files, you are able to provide any coverage format, every report format, any exchange format for a third-party system more or less you can imagine of, as long as they are text-based, CSV files, JSON files, XML files, text. If you want to store or archive them in a repository, text is more convenient than HTML or PDF or whatever. Markdown files, for example, everything is thinkable. We deliver some examples, and our idea is that these are really examples. In the HTML report, we deliver a lot of logic and structure and functions and so on. So we do not expect that you change the HTML report much, but you are able to. But these new templates, these simple file templates, are meant to be changed to your needs. For a dashboard or for integration or for CI integration or whatever. And we offer something additionally to the examples we have in package. We have also examples in our download area. And at the end of my talk, I would like to show you that. So I switch to the download area, and after below the package of CTC++, we have a section reporting templates. And at the moment we have 3 examples, but we plan to extend this every time we make a new template with a customer, or from our ideas we will provide it here. The screenshots show what you can expect. So the first one is the most simple one. It's just a text file that is easy to parse if you want. It just gives you all measures for your whole project, with a percentage and an indication if you are below or above the threshold, nothing else. And the second one is more meant for a dashboard, for example, a small batch containing the same content but in a visual representation in bars for several coverage measures. And the third one in this example is a CSV file containing everything. So we are on the other other side of what is possible, you can reduce it as much as you like. If you only want to have figures, only one figure for your project, you can do that with a simple template. And if you want to have everything that is reportable, you can also collect it. And here's one example. It's a multi-level CSV file. So we have directories, files, function, everything, and coverage for all these entities in one file. With that, switch to our download section. I'm at the end of the talk. Thanks a lot for all of you participating. We would be very happy if you give us any feedback about the new version, if you test it or if you have, if you use it in your everyday business. We are happy to receive feedback. So again, thanks all of you for participating, and goodbye.